So the following is a Google Trends graph of the search term marijuana stocks. And as you can see, this term has been searched fairly moderately up until recently, where it does spike quite a bit. And the reason why it spikes over here is because when Trump was running against Hillary in the elections, the question of legalizing marijuana got put on the ballot. So a lot of states were voting whether or not to legalize recreational or medical marijuana. And as the election dates got closer and closer, people began to understand that if the votes were actually going to put through and if they were going to succeed, then a lot of the companies that actually dealt with marijuana were going to have a lot of things to gain. So people wanted to get in on the action, people wanted to make some money off that, and people went to marijuana stocks to see which companies they could buy. And as more and more people began to realize this, of course the searches increased, and as the searches increased, the prices for the companies increased as well, because as more and more people invested, the prices went up. And a lot of the marijuana companies, the companies that dealt with marijuana, they went up at least several 100% before the election. Some of them went up even more, and they did end up crashing afterwards. But when a company goes up several 100%, there's a lot of room to make profit there. And this was just because of the elections. I mean, no licenses were issued, the companies hadn't begun selling anything. This was just before the elections, just to legalize marijuana costs this sort of a thing. So we can expect that whenever licenses get issued, that whenever Canada legalizes its marijuana as a whole, the whole country legalizes marijuana, we can expect to see a similar trend upwards whenever that happens. Now, it's not going to be as big of a trend because people are aware that this is going to happen, but the general public doesn't really follow this sort of stuff. So I think that whenever Canada, for example, legalizes marijuana, whenever it gets on the news, and the mainstream media is going to be talking about it, everybody else is going to be talking about it, the general public should become interested enough that at least some money flows into these stocks and the stocks go up again. So it should be interesting. It has cooled off recently, but it should go up again when Canada legalizes marijuana. So anyways, this video is going to be mostly about Canada because Canada is legalizing marijuana by or before July 1st of 2018. And Canada currently has some of the biggest companies in the world, some of the biggest publicly traded companies that you can actually invest into. So that's where a lot of people go whenever they invest into marijuana. Now, Canada will be legalizing marijuana by July 1st of 2018, but it will only be legalizing the plant itself. So make sure that you understand that. The regulations on the sale of edible forms of marijuana will be available at a later date. So if you're going to be investing into those companies, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer before they can make a profit and sell products and stuff like that. So that's that. Now, a lot of people worry about I had a link here, but I closed it. A lot of people worry about competition when it comes to marijuana. Canada is going to be having tariffs that will actually allow the industry will be about $8 to $10 billion in Canada, and the tariffs will actually make sure that the companies that are currently in Canada will not get competition from outside of Canada. So that will be that. So make sure that you understand that. Now, if you want to get a list of the companies that currently have the licenses to sell marijuana in Canada or to grow it, Health Canada, the website, this is the website. I'll put the link in the description, but these are the companies that currently have licenses to either cultivate or sale or both of marijuana. So, and there's currently, 52 I think that were on here? Yeah, 52 currently in total. And you can come here and you can take a look at their websites, and you can take a look at which licenses they have. So these are the companies. Do understand that Health Canada, which is a government entity, it's really inefficient and it is really slow at actually releasing licenses. So if you're going to try to speculate about companies that are going to be receiving their licenses, so if you're going to be trying to invest into a company that applied for a license but hasn't gotten it yet, be aware that there's a possibility that they will not get the license, because Health Canada as a government entity, it's really, really inefficient, it's really slow, and it's also fairly, it has been known to change its quality standards for, I'm not going to say no reason, but it has been known to change the quality standards. So Supreme Pharmaceuticals, for example, they tried to obtain their sales license, and they had to grow a batch to make sure that it was quality and everything. But Health Canada decided at a certain point that they were going to change their quality standards. So they basically said to Supreme that even though you just spent 3 months growing a batch, we've decided that something that you're using to actually grow your marijuana is not good enough, and you're going to have to redo it. So for a big company, it's not that big of a deal, but if you're going to be investing into smaller companies that don't have their licenses yet, it might be a fairly big deal if they get rejected for a license or have to spend another 3 months or so growing another batch and then getting it tested and so on. The amount of money that it costs might be significant for a smaller company as to a bigger company. It wouldn't be, to a bigger company, it wouldn't really be that significant. So make sure that you understand that. But anyways, so some of the bigger companies are Canopy Growth. Some of the companies that you probably see a lot are Canopy Growth, Aphria, Aurora, Organigram, Supreme Pharmaceuticals, Hydro Apothecary, that's how you pronounce it, I think, Emerald Health Therapeutics, WeedMD, Medleaf Corporation, and THC Biome. Some of these companies are smaller ones, so they have a little bit more risk to them. You can take a look at them individually. But a lot of these companies, if you're going to be investing into them, you really should do your homework, make sure that you understand everything. A lot of these companies have different strengths and different weaknesses. So Canopy Growth, for example, this is the biggest company that's out there, the biggest publicly traded marijuana company. Well, the biggest Canadian one, at least, the biggest Canadian licensed grower that's actually going to be selling recreationally. So they have a 1.5 billion market cap currently. And the thing about this company, one of its major advantages is that it's going to get a lot of free media coverage when legalization actually takes place. So whenever Canada actually legalizes marijuana, the news media is going to be talking about it quite a bit. People are going to be talking about it quite a bit. And the biggest company is always going to get mentioned first. So people are going to be looking at this company, and this is going to be one of the primary companies that people are going to be just shedding a lot of light on. So it's going to get a lot of free news coverage, a lot of just free gossip about it, and more people will be aware of its existence and the brand in general than the other companies. So that's an advantage for this company. Of course, it also has a bunch of other things going for it. It has a lot of different companies under its name, like a lot of different subsidiaries. So take a look. There's a bunch of different things. Then you have Aphria. This company invests into other companies. That's what it's been doing a lot. It also has some of the lowest, if not the lowest, cost of production in the industry. So that's that. You have Aurora, also a fairly low cost producer. Organigram. So Organigram is an interesting one because they had a pesticide contamination which kind of ruined their name, but at the same time, because of the pesticide contamination, their stock price is lower compared to their peers. So they have a bad history, but at the same time, they have a lower price because of that bad history. So take a look. You might be interested in it. A year from now, I don't think that people are going to remember their screw-ups that much, but I don't know. They might. Supreme Pharmaceuticals has a business-to-business model, business model, and that means that they don't really have to advertise. That means that they don't have to bother getting any sort of consumer base, any sort of brand, and they can focus on expansion more rather than all of that stuff. And that means less dilutions in the end. And of course, there's a bunch of other companies. I'm not going to go into all of them. There's a bunch of different ones. If you want individual analyses on companies, I have videos on my channel about that, but this is mostly everything to be aware of. So it should be interesting whenever all the licenses come out and whenever the actual legalization takes place. I think that there's going to be another major spike because the general public just has no idea. And there's also a big part of the general public that really doesn't believe that this is going to happen. A lot of people think that the government will screw it up, or that they're going to cancel it, or that it's not going to go through. And until it actually happens, those people are not going to be convinced. And once it actually does happen, some of those people are actually going to be comfortable enough to invest into these companies. Also, some of the bigger institutional investors are also going to be more comfortable investing into these sorts of companies once everything is actually legalized. So it should be interesting. There should be a lot of profit to be made here. The industry is quite big. A lot of these companies, in addition to investing into Canada, they're also investing into Germany, the United States, and some other companies. So in addition to having pretty much a monopoly in the Canadian market, because there's not going to be much competition for quite a while from outside Canadian sources because there's going to be tariffs. They're also investing in other markets. So in addition to the $8 to $10 billion market that is Canada, they're also going to have the United States, which is kind of tricky right now. We're not sure how that's going to work out, but they're going to have the United States, they're going to have Germany, they're going to have some other countries, France probably as well at some point. And yeah, it's looking good for these companies. And whether or not they're going to get you really good returns in 10 years, I'm not sure, but within a year or two, within that time schedule, they should be able to get decent returns, at least. Especially if you time them properly. Like if they double at a certain point, you should probably sell. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about individual analysis here, but I'll do that later on my channel once the time actually comes for that. But anyways, hopefully this helped. I don't know how useful these newer videos are for people because I know all of this stuff. It makes like this stuff is obvious to me. I'm just rambling on about it, but for newer people, for the people who are newer to this, and I assume there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be newer to this. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully it gives you like a general picture of what's happening, what you should be doing, what you should be looking at. And yeah, so if it helps, leave a like and check out the rest of my channel.